little by little by little, you can learn to reclaim your own life. You know, you can learn to believe in yourself. You can learn to set boundaries. You can learn to, if you're true to love, love will take care of you. You don't know how the marriage will turn out. That's not the deepest question. See? The real question is, can you live in the truth of love, which is the value of your life, like this. And see, to my mind then, that became the turning point for me. I call that the axial moment, the great turning, where you turn qualitatively downward and inward, not just in the midst of a garden or the midst of a poem, but the very midst of your suffering, you can turn downward and inward to the qualitatively deeper place that sustains you in the midst of your suffering. And it's being free from the tyranny of suffering in the midst of suffering. See? The suffering is still there, but it no longer has tyranny over your heart, because you have found that within yourself, which is qualitatively deeper. And then the integrity of your life is how little by little by little, how to sink the taproot of your heart into that you can have obediential fidelity to the truth of yourself. And you live your life. That insight to me, radicalized, you know what I mean? That really, what does it mean to be a contemplative clinician? You know, what's the contemplative depth dimension of the healing encounter? And I have found my sense, at least, whether it's somebody coming in business because they're addicted to cocaine, or they're overstressed, or they're losing their marriage, or rageaholic. For me, this has proven a very fruitful way to understand that as terrible as trauma is, it's not just terrible. You can transform trauma, see? By opening yourself up for something infinitely richer can break through and give itself to you in the midst of your dilemma. And that was a big thing for me.
And become a wounded healer.
And then you're a wounded healer because in your own woundedness, when you've been deeply traumatized or hurt, some of the wounds you'll take to a triggering event is anything in the present that in any way resembles the original trauma. And once you hit the tripwire, you'll re-experience it. Either as anger or fear, you can feel yourself doing it. But if you let it, the tripwires become your teachers. See? Because every time that happens, instead of getting angry or withholding intimacy or acting out, instead you come out from behind the curtain to get vulnerable with yourself and the other person. And little by little by little, that sustained willingness to be vulnerable to the preciousness of yourself not only changes your life, it changes the people who live with you. And I just think this is so significant for us today in this world.
I've heard it said in a really beautiful way that once we understand the trauma, we realize that it happened for us, not to us.
That's right.
In essence, that you, like you said, you can go back later and be grateful for an alcoholic father because of how it changed you and showed you your woundedness so that you could see how loved you truly were.
It's really true.
That you go back and you're grateful for the trauma, grateful for those things that caused you that pain, because that's what grew you into who you actually are, to show you you've lost yourself, but you were still enough.
It's true. And how I put it to people too is that I said trauma is terrible. Trauma is really terrible because trauma transforms us in terrible ways. And any attempt to romanticize trauma or speak of it is really to really dishonor. Because when I used to be beaten, it feels like you're being burned alive. I mean, you're just literally, you disappear into the pain, you can't even find yourself. But as terrible as it is, that's the point, it's not just terrible. So I wouldn't be who I am today, and I couldn't share what I share had I not gone through the trauma. You know, it's almost how strange God's ways are. Through the circuitous journey. God writes straight with crooked lines. And we're unexpectedly being asked to share something that we serendipitously stumbled into when we risk getting vulnerable enough to admit at the feeling level what's going on. It's true, I think.
Hauntingly beautiful.
Yes, it is. It's hauntingly beautiful.